All
Okay,
right.
good afternoon, everyone. This is our Go Health training, and Rhonda, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
All right. So today we'll be covering the service code module. The service code module in Go Health is where all of the billing related data is housed and maintained. So our focus today will be to educate you all on the functionality of the service code module and hopefully answer any questions that you may have. The one thing that I do want to note is that once this is deployed to your system, you will have full control over this module, and it will be at that time agency maintained. So just keep that in mind. Whatever changes are made will be the responsible of the agency. Whatever updates are made will also be the responsibility of the agency to maintain. The first thing that you'll see on your screen here is just a diagram of kind of how this is put together. Everything within this module is relational, and this slide here shows those relationships. So to me, it was a very good visual tool to have to understand that for a service code, there are branches basically that happen. And if you ever get stuck on understanding how the system works, this is a great tool to refer back to in seeing the relations that need to happen for service codes and guarantors to show up on notes and forms. So we'll go to our second slide. And this slide really just kind of talks or is a great example of the concept behind kind of what you see and what's done behind the scenes. So we call this the iceberg concept, but really it is basically just an illustration of you've got service types that are attached to service codes. And all of that is the thing, those are the things that you can kind of see and visualize. The other things that are behind the scenes that are working in the background are how those things are related to each other, like I mentioned earlier. So you've got billing roles, that are tied to staff. You have eligibility for the client. You have dates of service, the guarantors, and whether or not the client has a valid PA. All of these pieces determine whether or not a guarantor and a code will show up on a note or a form. And so these two things, I love these illustrations. Laurie did these for us, and she did an excellent job. So really, this is just a great example just to refer back to if you get stuck in the process of understanding why you're not seeing codes show up on your forms.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing, and Tabitha is going to go ahead and be in Go Health as we start the demonstration.
All right, well, everybody just kind of chime in and let us know when you can see the screen.
I can see it.
I can see it.
I can see it.
Tina's good. Gray, are you good? All right, Gray's good. Perfect. Okay, so this is the overview screen. One thing to note is if you hit the check mark here, it will show you all of the data. It will load basically all of the service codes within your system currently set up that are currently attached to service types. So if you get to this form or this page and you're searching for a service code and you're not seeing that service code, most likely it's because there's no service type attached. So just keep that in mind that it is not going to show up on this screen until it is attached to a service type, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. You'll see there are drop-down options at the top of this screen for service code, PA, etc. So this just gives you the option of, say if you want to look at a specific role within your agency, we'll go to just the first one on there. So say you want to see what all is attached to CM2. You can pull up that role and see every single service code that is attached with all of the information there for that specific role. The same goes for, like I said earlier, the PA group at the top, the actual service code itself. So if you want to look at a specific service code, this is a great way to do that to see, okay, Who all has access to this service code? And that's a perfect way to do that. So you'll also note, so we don't have anything attached to 90880 apparently. So let's go ahead and pull something up so that we can talk about sorting and filtering, Tabitha. Are you having a lag, Tab? There we go. Those may not be attached to service types in this. There we go. Okay. So, and again, you know, those are your selection options. You'll notice that there is a lot of data displayed on this window. Most of it is self-explanatory. The things that I do want to point out is that what I love about this screen is that not only can you see, you know, the guarantor, the actual service, you know, some basic data, but you can also see things like what clinical form, you know, is this particular service code attached to, and that is done through the service type. So you can see the clinical form itself. You can see any PA group that it's attached to, and you can also see the roles that it's attached to. So there's a lot of data on this screen. So just, you know, it's named overview for a reason. At any point, you can go to one of these filtering fields and filter out data or filter for certain data. So if you want to see something that is just, say, maybe a 15-minute unit or a 30-minute unit, let's go ahead and do 30 minutes in there, Tabitha. So this specific one is not done in 30-minute units. But you can do, so if you want to look at maybe, yeah, so any of the 45 contract sources, you can filter that way. Any of those fields will do that for you. Let's go ahead and show the sorting capability, Tabitha. So just like in our reports, this works in the very same way. You can sort and filter on your columns, just like you can in the reports, which makes it very, very useful, very easy. All right, so I think that pretty much covers it. We've covered the functionality and the sorting. So let's go ahead and move on to services. So this is where you would actually create new service codes for your agency. And Tabitha is going to go ahead and start entering one for us. So you would put in the code itself, you would put in the service description, and the service code and the description is what you would see on the note when they're choosing services. Put in the unit type and the unit multiplier, and then your start date. This is accessing a pretty big database, so it's gonna be a little slow. So you'll see that test 200 here is the service that we've entered, and we've started it with a 10/1 start date. Now, please keep in mind that when you're entering service codes, this is where you would attach the modifiers for those service codes. So you would need the base code, and you would create it, you know, if there's any modifiers, you would create an entry for each specific modifier. The other thing I want to make sure that you understand is that you do not want to duplicate service codes within here. And we will be throwing up an error if that happens. So if you happen to try to enter one with a service code, then it will definitely give you an error for that. All right, so Tabitha is going to update this particular one. So she has basically used the edit function. So at the far right, you'll see the little pencil icon. What she did was she clicked on that, and when she did that, it brought all of that information up to the input lines at the top, and that allowed her to put update on her description. So that's how she changed that. If you wanted to end date this service, then you would use this field here. We're not going to go ahead and do that because we'll use this one moving forward in our demonstration. Once you end date a service here in this window, it makes it unavailable on any guarantor selected windows moving forward. So just understand that. Once you indate it here, it will not be available to attach to any guarantors in the rest of the module. All right, let's go ahead and go to service rates. So I would encourage you, very first thing when you come in here, read through this description. There's David has gone through and really added a pretty in-depth description of how this functions. Tabitha is going to go ahead and attach this service code to a guarantor, but this is where you would do that. So within service rates is where you would attach any of your service codes to a specific guarantor. And this is also where you would define your rate for that guarantor, your unit type, the unit multiplier. All of those things are done in this specific window. So if it's a health home, if it's custody available for waiver clients, this is where you would want to say, you would want to specify those things. Is it a service that would be role restricted? If so, this is where you would want to indicate that. And then your hours multiplier is here, and then your start date needs to be put in here. So Tabitha's going to enter this one. And so when she filters for that specific one, you'll see that now she has a newly added service rate for Test 200 service code. And you'll see at the very left-hand corner that she has done it for DMH, and all of her specific information is attached to that service rate. So if she wants to edit, again, she would just click on the edit icon, and maybe she needs to change the unit multiplier. So she would just change that here and save her change. Now, one thing to note here is that if you indate your service code here, it will indate it for that specific DMH or that specific guarantor. We won't end it here for demonstration purposes, but just be aware that if in this window you indate a service rate, it will no longer show up for that guarantor on your notes. Okay, so I think we've talked about editing and we've talked about indating. So now we can move on to service by PA. So this module really is more of a reference tool for you all. David has already gone through from the ARC website and added all of the services and attached them to the PAs in the background. So really this is more of a reference tool for you. If you find that you need to indate one for a PA, you can do it here, but use this more as a reference tool because they are pre-added for you. So let's move on to services by DMH. All right, this is where you would attach your service codes to specific DMH contracts. So if your agency, at the start of the next fiscal year or even in the middle of a year gets a new contract, this is where you would go and attach the service code to the DMH contract and put a start date for it. Again, I want to point out that this module will now be maintained by the agency. So any of those contract changes, it will be up to the agency to maintain this information. So you'll see here for Test 200 update, we now have it attached to the 01AA contract. If you want to make any edits, of course, you would use the edit icon to the right. Okay, now we can go on to role restrictions. So for role restrictions, this is where you would attach your service codes to specific roles and make them available for specific roles. So we'll go ahead and do Case Manager 1 and we'll add a service code. So once Tabitha does her filter, you'll see now that Test 200, our newly added service code, is attached to the CM1 role. So that means that anyone with that role, as long as all of the other edits check out, they will see this service for the client that they're working with. The other thing about role restrictions, if you make a mistake, so say you add a role to a specific service code, You can back that out very easily. And you can also revert back and make the change, revert your mistake if you need to. So you can basically activate and deactivate as you need for those. Okay, perfect. All right, so let's move on to service types. So when I talked earlier about things being very relational in the service code module, this is one of those instances. So keep in mind, before you will see a service code on a form, it must be attached to a service type. The service types themselves are what are attached to the clinical forms in the system. So you want to make sure for all of your service codes that they are attached to the appropriate service type. We're not going to add any service types in here today, but if you wanted to, it's very easy to do. Well, let's go ahead and do one, Tabitha. Let's go ahead and show them. We'll just do a test one. Now, it's important to note that this is service types are specific to admission types and age. So you'll want to make sure to clarify that when you enter the new service types. And you'll see that 101 there is the new one that Tabitha added. And of course, she can use her pencil icon to edit if she needs to, or she can delete it if she needs to. All right. So that basically shows how to add a service type. Okay, service type links. So again, this is the relational thing that I talked about. So once you have your service type, so say if you create a new service type and you want to add a service code to that type, this is where you would do that. So for our new test service type, we'll add our 200 service code and we'll link those two together. All right, so you'll see now that we have test 200 attached to our test service type. And again, the edit and the delete options are there just like they are on all of the windows. All right, at this point, we'll go ahead and move on to clinical forms. So mainly, there's just a few things in here that you can edit. So we'll go ahead and just do the first entry here. These are all of the clinical forms that are currently available in your system. So if you need to edit one of those, you can come in here and edit the ages. You can also edit if this will be a billable form. Now, the one thing I do want to note is that if this is set to billable, once a staff opens the form and puts in the date, the billable fields will show up for that on that form. If this is not checked, they will not see those billable fields. Okay, and you can see how Tabitha has edited that specific clinical form. All right, let's go ahead and move on to clinical programs. The one thing I want to note here is one very specific thing that's very important. If your agency wants to track revenue by program, it is very important that your clinical forms be set to be billable and set to allow for programs or use programs. Now, the use program piece of it is something that is database maintained at the moment. We will have that available in the future for you to maintain, but that's about the only thing now that is still database maintained by GoHealth. So just keep in mind that if you create a new program, or maybe your agency hasn't been tracking revenue by program and now they want to do that, you'll need to let us know. So we're going to create a test program in here. Very simple, very easy to do. So you'll see how Tabitha just did that. And she can edit that at any time, and she can delete that at any time. Now, please be aware, if you use clinical programs and you want to pull those to notes, that clinical program will need to be selected on the client's chart before it will show up as an option in the notes. So that is one important thing to note there. All right, now we can go to program form links or clinical form links. So clinical form links here is where you would attach your service type to your clinical form. So Tabitha's going to select the service type that she added and attach that to the admission history form. So what this means is any service code that is attached to her test service type will now show up on the admission history, or now be available to show up on the admission history. Now understand there are still some caveats behind that. Staff eligibility or staff role and client eligibility and guarantors do play a role in whether or not service types or service codes show up. But this is one of the first links that has to happen for the service codes to show up. They have to be linked, the service types have to be linked to the clinical forms before they will show. All right, let's go ahead and move to PA groups. Again, this is another reference tool for you all. This is maintained by GoHealth currently, and the information that shows here pulls from the AHRQ website, or is pulled and updated from the AHRQ website. You can see here that all of your PA groups are listed with the description. The adult cap is shown, the child cap is shown, and then the PA units, the allowable units, are shown. And again, all of these are sorted, and all of these columns you can sort on, and you can filter on the data as well. All right, let's go ahead, Tabitha, and move to guarantors. Again, David has written a description, a very good description. So, please make sure that you've read through this very well. One of the main things, and we're not going to go through the task of adding a guarantor, but it's very important to note that you'll want to make sure that all of your fields are completed. So please make sure you don't leave anything out when you're entering your guarantor. Make sure there's something in every field. All right, so let's go ahead and go to DMH contract allocations. So this is the screen that you will want to make sure every year, every new fiscal year, you enter your allocations per contract. And this now will be the responsibility of the agency to maintain. So the next fiscal year comes up, you'll want to go ahead and choose that year and select the guarantor, and then put in the allocation amount for that contract. And the system, I don't know if you all have seen the report, but we do have a DMH allocation report, and it pulls this information. It looks at how much you were allocated versus how much has been used, and shows you the difference of that. So it is a very good report to utilize, and this is where that information is pulled from. So it is very important for you as an agency, at the start of each new fiscal year, to come in here and enter your new data. All right, Tabitha, let's go to clinic guarantors. So clinic guarantors is where you would attach your guarantors to specific clinics. And you want to make sure that anytime you have a guarantor, that you come in here and specify which clinics that guarantor is payable under. And as you know, if you have multiple clinics within your agency, not every guarantor may be payable for that clinic. So this is where you would make that connection for each guarantor to the appropriate clinic. Again, your sorting and your filtering options work the same, and the editing options work the same as well. All right, let's move on to place of service, Tabitha. All right, this is, again, another reference type window. This is loaded currently with all of the federal place of service codes, and you'll see the code and then the name. The only thing that you can do here is basically remove it as an option for your agency. So if you come in here and of course you go, oh, we don't do ambulance service, then you would definitely want to remove that one. The reverse option is there as well. So if you do something in error, of course you can use the little, if you look in the lower right-hand side, you'll see the little arrow that goes to the right. That would revert that and make it available to you again. and that is place of service. Now we're going to go to roles. So roles, this is in your personnel profile. Any one of you, if you manage or maintain the personnel profile for your staff, you'll notice on the left-hand side, there's a tab for roles. This is where that information is set up and maintained. So you as an agency can create your own roles. You can create the description for it, and then you would put a category on it and indicate whether or not this is a licensed LBHP. Again, this is a window that can be edited, so any of these can be edited and they can be deleted. Again, you will want to make sure that any of this is where that link happens from the services to the roles, and that this is the start of that basically. So you'll want to make sure that if you have any new roles that start within your agency, maybe you get a specific contract that needs a specific type of credential that isn't available, then you would come in here and create that role for that specific function, and then you would make those links in the role restrictions module that we were in earlier. All right, that concludes the demonstration portion of the service code module. I know we've covered a lot of ground, and I'm glad that we've kind of done it this way so that you guys can kind of process and ask whatever questions that you may have. So Laurie, do we have anything in our chat for some questions?
No, we don't.
Awesome.
So, we can open the floor up for questions, or if you guys just want to get the recording and then review it, the goal is we're going to set up some calls that you guys can get on and we can answer questions after you've absorbed this information.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. And this is, like I said, there's a lot of information to cover in here. If you get stuck in the process, definitely refer back to the PowerPoint examples. Those are great tools to use. Once you can get it in your head, okay, this is attached to this, and that shows on the note. It will help you quite a bit, just having those as reference tools. We are available to answer any questions at any time. Be more than happy to do that, and again, to do Q&A calls as needed. Okay, Tina has a question. So Tina, you want to go ahead and unmute?
Oh, about hung up on us. Yeah, well, I've been emailing with you, and I put a ticket in. We're wanting to change our tobacco codes to pro bono only. So you did, like you said, there's a lot to take in, and I'm just trying to see if you could walk me through how, if I want to make a particular service code only attached to a particular guarantor.
Okay, so Tabitha, on that, would they do that? So she's showing you here, you'd basically pull that up under services by DMH. You would have to end date the service codes so that they wouldn't show up anymore under DMH or whatever your payer source is.
Okay.
And then you would go and attach them in service rates to the guarantor that you want to attach them to. So right here, if Tabitha puts in T1012 HE, it's going to show you, it will show you everything that that service code is attached to. And that would be a good place to start to know which ones you would need to end date. So you'll see that DMH is one of those that you'll end date, and Medicaid is one of those that you'll end date. So you'll want to make sure to end date for your guarantors for any service code. So if this selection gives you all that you want to see, then just come line per line and end those, and then you would attach them to pro bono.
Okay, so I would end them here, and then I'd go up to pro bono and add them to pro bono.
Correct. Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Tabitha, did I miss anything in there?
No, you didn't, but I would add that if you want to like make sure that you get like your units and multiplier and all that right, go ahead and do like I've done, and you can see what we use for DMH, and you can just copy that up there. Of course,
Right.
for pro bono, it would be, the rates would be 0, but you could use your unit multiplier. I can't even talk, and your max units or whatever you want to use to this.
Yeah, because we definitely want it to show on their production and everything, but we just won't be having an amount.
Right.
Okay, so where will this be located at? I mean, when will the modules show up on our?
I just need to have David turn that feature on. And so I'm going to get with him this afternoon or early Monday and make sure that those are turned on for your agency. So you will go to your tools dashboard.
Okay.
And Tabitha, can you show them how to navigate there?
And you did say you were going to set up some question and answer calls after we get to look at this again?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. If we need to do that like next Thursday, this coming Thursday, after you guys have had a chance to play with it, we can certainly do that, or we can go into the next week. Okay. So here you can type in service and you'll see that it's called service code management. That's how you would find that.
I see she has 2 on there. Is that just?
It's because it's located under 2 different tabs.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
then
Well, I
there it
think that's all I got for now, but I'm sure I will have plenty more later.
is. Yeah, we really encourage you. I mean, this is going to be one of those things that you just need to get in there and use, you know, really before you're going to have any questions. So I'm not surprised that there aren't any questions. You know, of course, anything that we're open to suggestions. Of course, we tried to lay this out in a way that made it easy to manage, because there are a lot of pieces in here. There's a lot of data that has to be maintained. And so we tried to lay this out in a way, like I said, that would be easy to manage and that would make sense. So again, thank you so much to Laurie for doing the PowerPoints for us. Those are really great tools, and you know, I'm sure you'll find yourself referencing those often. Is there a better time for you all to do a call? Well, let me ask this. Should we give you like a week, and then maybe week after this next week, contact you to do a Q&A?
Like week after next?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm out next Friday. But yeah, for me, I think if I have a week to kind of look at it, and like you said, we're not even going to get them turned on till at least Monday or after.
Right.
We're not even going to be able to go in there until
Okay.
then. But yeah, for me, like week after next sometime would be good.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, we'll give you definitely over a week to get in here and use this and get familiar with it. And then we'll set up something a little later on down the road to do the Q&A. Rose, how are you feeling?
Whatever day is good for me. I don't care.
Okay.
I don't do a lot of this stuff. You know, it's mostly Zona, but it's interesting for me to know how it's done. So
Right. It's good to have a reference tool.
right.
Gray, do you have any questions?
Not at this time, no, but thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, guys. Well, we will end our recording for now. Thank you for joining us again on such short notice. I really appreciate it. And as soon as this video has compiled, we will get it out to everyone.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks. You have a great Friday.
You
All right,
too.
you too.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.